Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Southern California housing market update. My name is Stephen Meade with Domicile Real Estate for people who love houses. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because we've noticed something very unexpected has happened and that honestly doesn't really happen terribly often. So, kind of want to dive into why that is and what does that really mean for the housing market. Also, we've had some recent news come out in the last couple of days, and people have been asking us. The biggest thing that's come out that we've heard of is, of course, the inflation data. We chart this as soon as we have the data for the preceding month. We add it to one of our graphs and we go over that. But what's interesting is there's a lot of misinformation about that. I'll touch on that, but we're going to actually do a little bit more of an in-depth video this week about that. Anyhow, I don't want to wait much longer. I want to get into it, but just as a reminder, we are a real estate brokerage here in Southern California. We focus mainly on Orange and Los Angeles counties. So if you have a home to sell or you'd like to buy a home, we can absolutely help you with that. If you'd like to learn a little bit more and experience our expertise firsthand. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go through our charts here. So first one is active listings on the market. And this is pretty much what we've been seeing. There's not a whole lot of surprises here. You see this reduction. Inventory is crested. It is starting to go down in an appreciable manner, but we are still at a higher inventory level than we were a year ago. That should hardly be a shock to anyone. There are definitely more for sale signs out there that you're going to see there in the marketplace, both under $1 million and from our $1 to $2 million category. Again, just as a reminder, everyone, this is LA and Orange counties. So if we look at our last 14 days of new listings to hit the market, remember, we do have a holiday weekend in there, but a lot of times we actually see that listing activity rebound and bump the following week, or it at least evens out. And we really haven't seen that. I mean, this is a pretty strong dive in terms of new listing activity. You'll notice in both of these price categories, we are significantly below where we were next year in terms of the rate of new listings coming on the market. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And one of the things we've often talked about is that our market is reactive, meaning if the market appears softer, while that might mean that it's easier for buyers, it also means that sellers will be more hesitant to put their homes in the market. Interest rates also drive this supply question. Any move-up buyers are going to be more hesitant. They are not going to be willing to trade a lower rate mortgage for a higher rate mortgage, or they will be more hesitant to do so. And I think that explains a lot about why this overall listing activity is considerably lower than it was at this point last year. If we look at our new escrows, that number is also down, and it's down really even more sharply here in our under 1 million category. These are the buyers that are perhaps a little bit more sensitive to interest rate, entry-level buyers, right, that are not coming from other equity. We notice this 1 to 2 million range is off, but not off by nearly as much as a percentage. So when you take this together, right, if this is the supply of new homes and this is the demand for homes hitting the market, when we reconcile that, we end up with an absorption rate. And where are we on that? So under 1 million, we're right about an 80% absorption rate. That means for every 10 homes that come onto the market in the last 2 weeks, there have been 8 buyers. And down here for our $1 to $2 million category, it's about 75%, maybe 72% for that. So these are both really in kind of still in that like slight seller's market territory, maybe a little more so for under 1 million. If you've got a house that's priced right that people want, you will find buyers for it. But notice that this is a much more sort of like in the middle of the road demand. So it's still stronger than it was through this July period, which was kind of a low point, but not nearly kind of the level of demand that we saw towards the end of last year. Prices, right? Everybody wants to talk about prices. And in this chart, it doesn't quite show it, but what's interesting to me is this entry-level market, right? This 25th percentile market, that's going to be largely condos and some entry-level single-family homes. That has been the most resilient price-wise. And if you look back here, we're at a price point level really that corresponds to about the middle of March, maybe middle or end of March. Kind of you see them crested up here and then dropped a little bit, very gentle. If you look back here to our median price, That price range, we're looking back again to the beginning of March. And then if you look at our 75th percentile, that's kind of our more luxury price range. We're really looking at prices that are close to probably about where we were towards the middle of February. But remember, these closed prices, these represent where the market was. They don't represent where the market is. So it's important to understand that this data is essentially 4 to 6 weeks old. We are taking a look backwards at where were buyers in negotiating about 4 or 5 weeks ago. If we look at our percent still active after 14 days, that has taken an uptick, which is kind of interesting to me, not necessarily surprising. What this means is it's saying that even though buyers are out there, they are being more careful with what they're choosing, and they're not just picking up the new houses as soon as they hit the market. There are homes that will come on the market and sell in a week, but there are also homes that will take 60 days and possible price reductions in order to sell. And then if you look at our close to list ratios, and this is interesting, this one really tells that story. And one of the things we've always talked about with this graph is what this is measuring. This is measuring the difference between what sellers think their homes are worth and what buyers think those same homes are worth. So when you see this number way over 100%, what does it mean? It means buyers are valuing the homes more than sellers. When you see this number drop, as we anticipated, kind of around this 99.5% level, that means that it is actually these sellers that are overvaluing their homes at this point in time. And then if we look at our days on market for new contracts, this number is going up. And what is that telling us? It's telling us a lot about buyer behavior. Buyers are not just jumping at anything that came on the market this week. They are being pickier. And even if there is a home that they like, but they don't feel it is priced appropriately, they will wait. They will wait for a price reduction to happen before bidding on those homes. So that's why you're seeing that while we all have an overall healthy, supply and demand balance, that those absorption rates are still good. You're seeing these days on market numbers go up. Now we have the fun part, and what we were talking about was something unexpected. So just as a recap, this is a chart that we developed in order to compare three things. The payment on a median priced home, which is basically formulated by both the price point of the median as well as interest rates. The CPI index, so for those of you who are nerds, this is actually the CPI-U, and it is not seasonally adjusted. And there's some reasons for that, and we've got a video coming out on Thursday where we will go and do a deep dive on why we picked this number and why we like this number versus the numbers that are normally published and talked about in headlines. And then the rent index, which is where we index the median rent on single family homes. And we index these all back to June of 2018. And what that lets us do is that lets us look and see kind of these numbers, how they grow together. And in fact, you'll notice these numbers were all very close until about the beginning of this year, until about maybe February of this year. And then you see a couple things happen. Number one, inflation is stepping along here. You'll notice it's flattening out a bit, which is something we'll talk about again on Thursday. But then you see this blue line goes up and this payment index. And what is that? That payment index, that's watching those interest rates rise as well as home prices. Then things kind of hit this plateau here, right, where they kind of stayed in this steady range. And now this payment index has actually dropped a bit. And I think if you're a buyer, this is important to understand and to look at and to understand that you are actually in a better position today than you were in April of this year, even though it doesn't seem like it. You're still not in the position you were in maybe in January, but you're in a better position today than you have been all summer with these numbers here, except for maybe this little dip here. But the number I really want to talk about is this yellow line here, and that is our rent index. And you see the rents kind of moved up, then took a couple big jumps up along with those housing payments. They leveled off just the same, and then they dropped. And one of the things I'm always talking about is this gap. right? This gap between payment index and rent index, that gap cannot be huge for very long. That is a market instability. So when I see a huge gap like this, I feel like something's got to give. And in this case, the give was rents went up. Now, as this payment index has slid down slightly, we're seeing that rent market is easing as well. Another explanation for this is that, in any given point in time, if you've got 100 people out there looking for housing, we'll say, right? If mortgage rates are low and payments are low, maybe 80 of those people are going to be looking to buy a house, right? So that's going to make the real estate buy market crazy. And only 20 are going to be looking at rentals. What does that mean? The rental market will be softer. But what if you reverse that? What if rates go up and suddenly renting becomes more attractive to people? If that should happen, you're going to see the rents actually spike up and go up. As opposed, so what we're trying to figure out here is when we look at this graph, is this rent market softening? Is this because in the last few weeks people moved back to buying, or is this rent market softening for another reason? And I really want to wait a couple of weeks before I make a determination that. I think that we're still seeing what's a healthy gap. We saw a little bit of easing on this payment. And what are we seeing there? A little bit of easing on that rent index. We're not talking about a huge amount of easing, right? Like a couple $100 maybe, after they had accelerated quite dramatically in the spring. So, your rents have gone back to what? May 3rd pricing on houses. I don't know if that's a huge gain or not to the beginning of May, but that's what we're seeing there. And then if you look at our prevailing mortgage rates, you see that they are vastly heading towards that 6% level in terms of a national average. But again, I do want to make this distinction here so people understand the payment index on a median price home, meaning the amount you're actually paying, has actually softened a bit because of some of those price reductions that we've seen in the median priced home. That has actually made the payment less than it was earlier this year. So that's all I have for you this week, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Questions, comments, we love them. Keep them coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And 2 other reminders: if you are looking to buy or sell residential real estate here in Southern California, Los Angeles and Orange counties, absolutely hit us up. We'd love to help you out with that and lend you our expertise. And then the second thing is we have a really cool video for those nerdy people coming out on Thursday. I'm excited to do it. So definitely keep an eye out on our YouTube channel. Another reason to be subscribed so you don't miss that awesome video. And we'll see you again real soon.